Hey, it's me, Big P, and I'm here bringing you another video. It's good to be back. I've had a lot of computer issues in the past month, and I finally got them fixed. And now I kind of want to do a bunch of videos kind of wrapping up these other games I've been playing before that new Path of Exile League drops. And I thought, what better way to warm up than with another ARPG, a little indie game from an indie company called Diablo 3. Season 19 picked up a lot of traction. A lot of people were playing, and I got swept up in it. I actually ended up making two guys. I mean, I guess this one's not really done, but I did do that Whirlwind Barb, got the set and stuff. That was pretty fun, but I'm going to kind of just run a Nephilim Rift while I'm leveling this other one, and I think that'll be enough time to sort of sum up my experience with the game this month. I think Diablo actually does a lot of things pretty well. Even despite feeling pretty dated in a lot of ways. So I think it's kind of cool, especially because I feel like I have a kind of outsider perspective. I did not initially play Diablo when it was released, like 7-8 years ago. So I kind of have like a fresh perspective on it. I'm still gonna, be a little critical of some things, but I think they do a lot of stuff right. That Path of Exile can probably learn from. And besides, as an ARPG player, we have as consumers, you really don't have anything to gain from competition. So even if you hate Diablo and you immediately shut off the video and you're not even watching this, because why the hell would you do a Diablo video? I mean, spoiler alert, this is probably going to be the first and last Diablo video on this channel, at least for a while. So I think to get into why that is, you have to think about something like the season rewards. If you don't know how the season rewards work, I guess it's kind of like challenges for a Path of Exile League. They sort of are, I guess, tangible sorts of like growth for your character. The way that it works is you kind of do a set of challenges up here. I already did mine on my Whirlwind Barb, so it won't show, but you do all these, and you get the set. I mean, it's probably not worth really going over much. There's a lot more information. I mean, that's information that's not really new. That's just kind of a baseline, just in case you don't know. But I think that's, both a good and bad thing. The tangible sort of power, growth, just like the spurts, especially in a game like Diablo where you can sort of customize the difficulty. And if you're feeling kind of bored, you can like do the same content, but like add a higher level of torment or something like that. It's nice to have sort of goalposts you can move towards, the sets are incredibly powerful, and if you kind of feel like you've hit a wall with your character, it's nice to be able to move towards something that'll just make the game feel a lot better for you as a player. I know a lot of people, for example, who have tried Path of Exile and given up somewhere during leveling in the axe just because they felt like they were just doing more and more of the same shit. If you're following a guide, you're gonna get set up with like your skill pretty early on. It's gonna tell you as soon as you can get it, you start using it. And I think a lot of people aren't really prepared to only be doing that, skill for the rest of their gameplay for that character. And I think that's another thing Diablo does well. The skill system is extremely flexible. You can kind of just play around with it. I think it's like even within the same like instance, like you just need to be out of combat technically. I know that I've like kind of like tinkered with something, swapped the skill out to something, swapped the rune or whatever it's called, and oh hey, don't go away. And then like went back into it and fixed it up. So that sort of flexibility is really nice. It kind of allows me as a player to kind of figure out the way that I want to play. Like this is kind of like a weird Legacy of Dreams build I'm doing here, which means that I just use a bunch of different legendaries and gain not exactly equivalent to the set power, but it's close enough to make me feel like I'm sort of making my own builds. And that kind of brings me to the points of Diablo that I'm a little more iffy on, which are kind of the same points. So I did talk about the sets being incredibly powerful, and, you know, good points of reference for players to kind of gauge their power. But that kind of means that almost every other piece of gear is kind of obsolete. It's not really, it's like one and done. Like, for example, unless you're going to farm out like the ancient or primal ancient versions. I'm not really sure. I'm not going to do that. I don't know really what the difference is. Once you get that set for the season, you're done. And so I kind of had that on the Whirlwind Barb, which was fun to play. But, you know, after a certain point, I just don't get to really use any of the gear that I'm getting. And that's like 6 slots that are just like will never be replaced unless it's like a very specific. And then even if it is a upgrade, it's not a huge difference. It's just like another mod on the item is like slightly different. I mean, it's just like ridiculous sorts of like there's no way that you'll be able to increase your rend and whirlwind damage by 10,000% using anything else but other than the set. Like when I read that, I was stunned because it's like, okay, I get that, and I just will never use any other set of armor. I guess, I don't know. I'm not so into that sort of gearing process. I guess it's kind of like a WoW style set gearing process. Set bonuses are, you know, you could probably go into do an entire video on the value of set bonus, but like kind of the way it shapes the gear grind of a game. That's not this video. Again, Nephilim Rift isn't going to be long enough. So I do like it, but I do feel it also kind of creates definitive pieces of gear in your build, which kind of make it boring, kind of make it stale. And in the same way, I was talking about the skills being flexible and how that's fun, but then at the same time, there is basically no consequence for the experimentation, and so the way that these games are played is it's just the top tier shit's going to be figured out, and there's not going to be much else beyond that, which is, you know, it's experimentation, but all the experiments lead up to the same sort of, you know, conclusion. And so that makes it kind of, you know, the player, it's less satisfying to make a build, even if you do it on your own, when it's really, yeah, see, you cannot, oh, see, so I was like in combat. See, like, you can just change that right now, kind of. It doesn't even let you bring up the menu. But, you know, swapping in between, stuff like this. I'm not, like, complaining about not having to pay, like, a cost to respec or something like that. It kind of sounds like a stupid thing to complain about, but I think it's more the design of these skills, you know, giving you access to every single skill and every single rune, and just making, in, you know, after you've your max level, like, that's it. Now you build with those pieces. It is limited, you know, it just feels limited in a way. And I feel like that's kind of how I would sum up a lot of the Diablo 3 experience, you know. It's just sort of, it feels dated and finite, and the end game is just not really as compelling as I would hope it to be. And then on the other end of the spectrum, the leveling and everything doesn't feel as sort of satisfying when I'm basically just running to do the checklist of season shit. And then, you know, and then I have my set, and then the build's strong, and you push whatever the highest rift you want to. You grind out some Paragon levels. That's all well and good, but especially because it kind of gives you adventure mode right at the beginning. The first time I played, I think season 17, I was like, you know, I've never done the story mode, so I really want to do that. And my friends basically stopped playing with me because they're like, what the fuck, who's going to play the story mode in 2018, 2019 of fucking Diablo 3? Again, like, it's, people really do not like doing the leveling in the Axe of Path, but I feel like there's some sort of value in having, I guess, a sort of consistent narrative as the start. I guess calling it consistent and, you know, even a narrative in Path of Exile is a little generous, because the Axe Again, the sort of way you play an ARPG is you really boil it down and try to just crash on through it as fast as you can to get to the end game, and do all the content you can. But anyway, I'm kind of getting off topic. What else do I like about Diablo 3? I don't want to really... the build I'm doing right now is pretty fun. Legacy of Dreams is kind of a cool thing. I guess that's another point I wanted to bring up. They did try to address the sets with the Legacy of Dreams. You can just, read that real quick. While you have no set bonuses, every legendary item gives you more damage. If I was really going to push this build, I'd get to 70 and then, put the XP in the gem and max it out, and my build would get stronger and stronger, which is cool. But I think they made this gem drop pretty early from the greater rifts, if I'm not mistaken. It's like second, at least I got it on my second drop. It was kind of rare before, but they kind of force it as an early thing so that if you, like me, got bored with your first character almost immediately after getting your set, you can kind of immediately start building up a new toon that's more, I guess it's more piecemeal. It's like, this is my Etch Sigil is awesome, but like this is like whatever, I can't wait to replace this, and then like the Auric Signet isn't even actually doing anything. Just little things like that that help kind of make the game more engaging, or at least the loot more engaging. I'm like really bad at running rifts. I'm kind of getting sidetracked. This is probably the longest, cringest rift anyone has ever seen. What else did I want to go over? I guess I'll talk about stuff like the cube. Stuff like the cube is awesome. If we could implement something like the cube in Path of Exile, I guess I should go over what the cube is for those who don't know. You kind of, the cube, you get to extract like the unique modifiers of, I guess, the unique or legendary items, whatever they're really called. And you can just kind of use them without having that piece of gear equipped, which is awesome. It's so cool. I don't really have anything fancy on this character right now rocking. It's just like little things like chance to chain lightning, and I have like the pants, the stinky pants that do AoE poison damage if a lot of people are around me. Obviously, just implementing something like that in Path of Exile might be, seen as intense power creep, and probably not going to be implemented anytime soon. But I'm just the sort of guy who's gonna immediately attribute stuff to Path of Exile, just because that's one of my favorite games currently. Maybe not this current league. I know I've wanted to try some other stuff. I played some Borderlands, played some Diablo, and I gotta say, overall, I was pleasantly surprised with Diablo. If nothing else, I'm glad to have a sort of point of reference for the design of Path of Exile, and see why people might prefer this. And I do see why people might prefer this. The gameplay overall is a bit chunkier in a good way. It feels more meaningful. Stuff, even little things like ragdolls of the monsters as you blast them away can be very effective for, oh dude, tell me the layouts in that little corner. I don't know these Diablo layouts, y'all. I'm sorry. This is horrible. Or is it here? Oish. Yeah. I guess something to note is, I guess, Nephilim or Greater Rift, like fishing for the correct rift or something like that. I'm surprised because, like, I've heard people who play Path of Exile, like, talk about that, and they've done nothing to address it. In a game, I guess, that's just the way it works. I just don't understand why they would really, the game kind of gives you free maps or whatever, however you want to call it. I'm not sure why they draw the line at like rifts, like not being able to let you pick and choose your preferred sort of maps tile set. I mean, I guess it's because maybe that would really take away some of the game play of it, and you can't just give players exactly what they want all the time. Guess it would be a little boring. I think it's a little bit, it's not very meaningful customizability. Well, let's get this enough one. I'm like running out of content here, man. I don't really know what else to say about Diablo. I guess I like um, I guess I like the way it feels to play to a certain degree. Again, I just feel like sometimes it's hard to really gauge. Like, bosses feel kind of like whatever to me. I feel like I've never... It's either the boss is on too high of a torment difficulty for me to do anything, right? Like right now. Uh, or, I just one-shot it with whatever build. I think that the difficulty in Diablo is a sort of thing that, because they give you so many different points of it, so many different torments, and things like that, it's kind of hard to gauge consistent experiences. I mean, I guess that's what the greater rifts are for. What the hell's going on here? What else? I mean, I guess the Legacy of Dreams is a cool thing to kind of go into. Like, I think it feels like sort of a secondary game design, like how sets are completely broken, overpowered in this game. How do you address that? Well, you have to incentivize legendary items solely through one other item, not really addressing the set design at all. I mean, look, I'm not gonna ask Blizzard to completely redesign every single piece of gear that they've had from a 7-8 year old game. I'm just saying that I think it's a different sort of place you can stand on in terms of, I guess, just gear design, which often shapes the game. The game Diablo, I don't feel like we're gonna identify the legendaries that dropped for me. I'm vendoring every rare. Like, there's just no chance that it's gonna be broken. What the hell? That's crazy. It does not affect legendary gems. Yeah, but then this is just like, this doesn't have any unique thing, so it might as well be a yellow item. Oh, I guess something else is the crafting in Diablo I kind of like. I think it's just more straightforward and kind of has a nice consistency. I kind of understand like the tiers of what I'm doing a little bit more. Like, even after playing so much Path of Exile, I feel like the crafting is incredibly punishing and expensive. There's different levels of it, and but it's hard to sort of kind of the scale of what an item can be in Path of Exile. Like, a good base starts at something, and then you can craft it up into it being amazing. Whereas like a dropped rare probably isn't that amazing, but some of them are. Like, it's very vague and difficult to really tell a lot of the times. Whereas with this, I guess the item rolls across the board are more consistent. So overall, I guess, summing up my thoughts on Diablo, it's a nice, consistent little package, but it has a finite lifespan from the moment you boot up the season. Just with stuff like sets existing, you do your chapters, and then you're done. With Path of Exile, sometimes like I'll do my 12, 24, 36 challenges, get those juicy MTX sorts of things, and that will determine how long I play. But then I'm also pulled into doing a new build because they updated an ascendancy or added a new skill, or I got like a cool drop that like could enable a build. I feel like you do not get that in Diablo. There's almost no way to get that in Diablo. The only reason I rolled a second character in this game is because Legacy of Dreams, they made it so it drops second. And it's almost as though they're aware of how quickly a game like this will lose the player, because it just feels a little bit dated. It just feels like a little bit too well known. I guess that's another problem. That's like, it's way too well known at this point, and the sort of reference material, I just wanted to learn like a little bit, and you kind of just end up learning like every step of growth for the character. So maybe it's not even the game's fault, and it's kind of the communities that play these sorts of games that just kind of tear it apart in a way. But anyway, I don't want to ramble on too long with this video. Diablo 3 was fun, but we are going to get back into some Path of Exile content. Might do another little podcast for it, or another video about maybe Borderlands, maybe another video here or there. But we're going to get back into that new Path of Exile League that's coming this Friday. I'm making this video on Tuesday, So the hype is there. Kind of wanted to get this video squared away. If you're a Diablo player, you have any thoughts? I don't usually make these sort of videos about non-Path of Exile games, so please let me know about your experience, how long you've been playing, stuff like that. I haven't played that much, so maybe I'm completely like misinterpreting some points of the game's design or parts of the end game. Just let me know how wrong I am and how good Diablo is, because I think it's pretty good, but definitely don't see it getting that lasting sort of satisfying gameplay that Path leaves me with. And I feel like that's the growth of characters are really. Excuse me, please do not interrupt my video. Anyway, well, some people just can't deal. All right, thanks for watching. New videos coming soon. More content coming soon. Thanks for Diablo. I love you, Diablo.